my father was emotionally abusive throughout my childhood. As an adult, I've worked hard to process that trauma and build healthier relationships. However, my partner uses some of the same controlling and demeaning language as my father. I know they aren't being intentionally abusive, but it's still so triggering for me. How do I address this constructively? Great question. There's a lot in here that we could almost camp out in for a while. And to the writer of this question, I'm not speaking specifically about you. It triggers me on a lot of other stuff that's out there. Um, I think, back to criticism, what we were saying earlier, there is, there's so much lack of specificity today, kind of in the language. I notice in the culture and relationships and people, even in spaces I find myself working in, um, that are global statements that really aren't oftentimes helpful. Um, emotionally abusive. Now, please understand me. I believe in emotional abuse. Okay. I'm a psychologist. I've been doing this for a long time. I know what that is. I'm all for helping victims of emotionally abused or emotionally abused victims. I have seen a lot of situations where it's hyperbole, especially with couples. I see this a lot with couples, where somebody's described as he's emotionally abusive. And then I get with the two of them, and he or she will do whatever emotionally abusive. And the other one will go, see, there he goes emotionally, or there she goes emotionally abusing me again. And I'm going, I'm sorry, but it sounded like maybe frustrated or impatient. I wouldn't call that emotional abuse. So, whole nother topic. You see this today with gaslighting. You see it with narcissism. You see it with triggering. You see it. So many terms have gotten so global that they have lost their meaning, and we need their meaning. We need their meaning for when they're accurate and when they're true. And I just want us to be as helpful as possible. And sometimes global labels like this don't really give us a problem that we can solve. And has nothing to do with the question. The question just triggered me as I talk about triggering. On when we're communicating with each other about problems, let's try to talk about the real problem, because talk about the real problem and specificity of the problem, then we can go take some steps to solve it. Anyway, okay. You know what I need? I need to have a rant show. I think everybody should have a rant show. You get X amount of time to do your rant, the things that bug you. Okay, we won't do that today. Um, but your father was emotionally abusive. I wish I knew literally what specifics of that. That can be, it can be like soul murder. It can be so abusive that it can destroy your emotional regulatory systems. It can destroy your views of subject and object and the views of the world. It can render you powerless. It can be awful. And it says you've worked hard to process that trauma and build healthy relationships. Way to go. You've done your work. That's really good. And for all of you who have gone through things like that, it doesn't just go away on its own. So I would encourage you to do the same. All right. However, my partner uses some of the same controlling and demeaning language as my father. I know they aren't being intentionally abusive, but it is triggering. Very valid claim. How do I address this constructively? Um, I'm going to assume some things here when you said that they're not doing it intentionally. If they're not doing it intentionally, then what that says is they're not trying to hurt you, but they are hurting you. Okay. So the big constructive kind of umbrella that I would like to see y'all put this under is, let's talk about how we can help each other to feel good and not bad. Let's help talk about how we can make each other feel more connected to each other. Let's talk about how we can help each other feel good about ourselves, and kind of get under the, let's have some discussions to make some things better. Now, if you can both get buy-in on that, I'd like to talk about how we can communicate in a different way that would help me feel better about myself. It would help me feel better about you and feeling close to you. It would draw me towards you instead of making me afraid of you or scared. And it also helped me to stay out of some pain, because sometimes in our how we're feeling, then it triggers kind of how I'm carrying some stuff from way back when. And I know you don't want to do that intentionally. So let's talk about some strategies. Then back to what we said earlier today. This is amazing how much this question ties into the little opening thought today. Y'all could each say, what are some things that you do and the ways that you speak to me that I find really, really helpful? When you tell me this, that you could do this differently, or, I need this, or this helped, or this didn't help, or whatever. I find that really, really helpful, really helpful. Um, so I like it that you do that. Um, there's some other times where when you say these particular things, um, I don't, I don't find it helpful. It does stuff to me. So I need you to do it like this instead of like this. And so it starts with deeply understanding each other, because you might not even know what triggers the other one. And that's where you can start to become healing agents for each other. It's like one of the big schools of therapy, emotionally focused, and the imago therapies and all of that. What they try to do a lot of times is to get couples in a healing space for each other, where the ones that's now triggering my father wounds becomes a healer of my father wounds by relating in a different way. So I would try to get specific, but make it actionable, and talk about what you need and how to do it for and from each other. And I'm assuming that he or she wants to do that because they're not being intentionally. The second thing is, when it happens, if you're going to get triggered by it, it's really important to try to not respond while being triggered. So if you can say, take a time out, say, you know what, I got to take a moment. This is hard for me, because you said they're not intentionally doing it. Your father apparently was intentionally doing it. So we got to separate the transference. We got to separate dad from whoever we're talking about here.